I'm Dr. Eric Greenleaf, and I'm going to speak with you today about trance, hypnosis, and the uses of hypnosis in therapy. Trance is a naturally occurring phenomenon, an experience all humans have in one time or another. It comes in about 5 different flavors, which I'll describe to you. Hypnosis is the induction of or invitation to trance experience between 2 or more people. And hypnotic psychotherapy is the use of hypnosis along with many other relational and communicational ways or approaches to help and to heal patients in psychotherapy. You can think of trance as a kind of altered state in the sense that we have some sense of who we are, where we are, and what's going on. And occasionally, as in dreams, for example, or states of confusion, an altered sense of who, where, and what we are. The first kind of trance state, and the one most people are familiar with, is a trance of extreme focused attention. And you've seen hypnotists on TV or worked with hypnotists who would have you focus on a nice crystal, on their finger, on their face. Look deeply into my eyes, they say in the movies. When there's a strong focus of attention, there's a similarly narrow, intense, altered state of trance. You can see that in athletes taking penalty kicks in soccer or preparing for a foul shot. They don't hear the crowd. They don't even hear the coaches necessarily. They're focused on the ball, the goal, and the goalie. Those intense and focused trances are very useful in any sort of performance activity, from theatrical performance to public speaking, and creative efforts, like writing mathematical proofs. They're also very useful states for interpersonal intimacy, closeness, and attentiveness. Mothers gaze at their babies' faces, and the babies gaze right back in what most observers would think of as a kind of a loving state of trance. The second type of commonly occurring or common everyday trance, as Dr. Erickson put it, is a dissociative trance. These trances occur naturally during times of injury, trauma, or great distress. It's possible, if you have ever seen hypnosis, that you will have seen this, which is called arm catalepsy, which is a way of giving the person an odd sense of being complete and yet separate from yet part of. That's a trance state. My arm has a mind of its own, but I have a mind of my own, side by side. Dissociative trances are, of course, often thought of as symptomatic, as in PTSD, when a person cannot be present for his or her own experience, but acts as though influenced by a situation not currently occurring. But it is also a useful state in therapy to set aside pain, fear, to keep part of the body still, as in medical procedures or dental work. So the dissociative trance, very useful and occurring in a common everyday way. The third major flavor of trance is common everyday trance of a confused sort. The best example is cheap ads on television, where the viewer is bombarded with a collection of numbers and time periods and colors and shapes and possibilities, but wait, there's more. If you're overloaded with facts, whether they're true or not, misleading or contradictory, a kind of frozen state sets in people's experience. They watch and lean forward eagerly until the directive comes across the screen. Call 1-800 such and such right now to order your product. And people do. A regrettable but current example of this is politicians who constantly lie, because lying and then retracting lies, changing the story, saying, well, I never said that, the whole toolkit of lying bombards the listener who's trying to establish integrated meaning. Did he say that? But did he mean this? But how can he not? He promised, yet he says he never did. So in those instances, the confusion trance occurs, and people wait for a clear directive message. The politician then says, only I can solve this problem. And a large proportion of people follow. Two other very important flavors of trance. One is familiar to everyone. It's contemplative and meditative trances. These can be still or in movement. Tai Chi or yoga are separate from and yet part of one's daily experience. They create an altered state. The same with still meditations like Zen meditation. Prayer is also a trance state where one has an equivalent of an out-of-body experience. One is as though watching a conversation between the person and their God. Although the God is not visible, and the person is focused broadly and openly without a particular direction. The fifth flavor of trance is visionary and dreamlike trances. So people who have a vision of a god or a saint, or a vision of a beloved person who has died, are in an altered state of mind, feeling, intent, thought, and activity. They are literally altered. People who have had the vision of near-death experiences similarly are in an altered state. And that altered state, like a post-hypnotic suggestion, can last a very long time. Those experiences, and the experience in dreams, including lucid dreams, dreams in which we believe we know we're dreaming, and dreams that somehow do not feel like real dreams, but rather like present experiences in reality, are all altered states and so qualify as trances. And one more, I said there were 5, the extra flavor of trance is an unconscious trance. An altered state we are not aware of that compels us or changes us. A common example is the frequent experience of scientists or mathematicians or just people in general who are puzzled by a compelling and difficult problem that they cannot solve consciously, nor through consultation with family and friends or colleagues. People often say in English, I guess I'll just have to sleep on the problem. They go to bed, perplexed, troubled, confused, and wake up in the morning, if they're lucky, with a solution to the problem, or a relief from the nagging unfulfillment of the problem. Hypnosis can be invited in very simple ways. You and I could both look at a painting together. Or even better, look at our child's or grandchild's face in a photograph. And in doing that, share a felt field of experience without having to say much about it. When we share a trance, it's hard to say who's hypnotized, it's both. Or all of us, when a compelling speaker mesmerizes a room of listeners. And it's also possible that that shared trance becomes therapeutic, helpful, or healing. Think of what happens when you receive your vaccination injection every year. And the nurse may pinch you to create a pain away from the shocking, sharp injection site pain. The same thing we do when we clench our fists and drive our nails into our palms if the dentist is about to do something painful. We're using a slightly dissociated state and attention to something, not the whole situation, but part of it. You'll see people whose blood is being drawn look away. And very often there are interesting faces of other nurses around, or a picture on the wall. By doing so, they use a naturally occurring trance to help themselves and to help people who are helping them. Again, to be still, to have the proper meditative trance sometimes requires the proper help with dissociation. Dr. Erickson used to say when inducing trance, "Oh, don't look at me, just look at this glass of water, an ordinary handy thing." So he would create a dual attentiveness, the person still listening to the doctor's voice, but watching the bubbles in the glass of water, and perhaps even a third or fourth focus of attention. So you can begin to see and to think about times in your life when you experience natural trance. Everyone who's ever had the privilege of falling in love or seeing their new baby for the first time knows that those experiences, however we discuss them, constitute and are known to be naturally occurring altered states. The hallmark of those states, by the way, is that they're very hard to convey in the language of conscious thought. If you ask me, why do you love your wife or your son or grandsons or daughter-in-law or friends, I'll go like this, or I'll say, why do you have to ask? Because there is no set of criteria, but everyone knows when it's so or not so. Trance is similar. You know it most of the time when it's present in your experience, and you know when it's not most of the time in your experience as well. So you can think of all those times when you've had experiences that don't quite fit your ordinary sense of things, and yet are benign, helpful, resourceful. Those are naturally occurring trances. There are stunning examples. People who are not particularly big and strong, if someone is pinned under a car, may walk over and lift it up with strength that they cannot explain, nor can anyone else. They think of those events as miracles, and they are, in the sense that they are unusually resourceful, healing, helpful, and integrated with the lives of others. Hypnotic psychotherapy, as conducted by the members of my institute in Northern California and Ericksonian therapists all over the world, attempts, often successfully, to discover the natural, or as Erickson said, common everyday trance experiences of people, and to use or utilize those experiences to help people expand their abilities, reduce their anxieties, lift their down and depressed moments, and focus their attention on achievements, close and loving relationships, and creative expression. There's a famous story in science of Kekule, the chemist, organic chemist, who was trying to determine the nature of the benzene ring. The benzene molecule was complicated enough and had enough atoms in it that he was puzzled. And the story is, he went to sleep, had a dream of figures dancing in a ring form, a circle, and woke up and said, that's it. Benzene is organized with the atoms in a ring. That was confirmed by experiment, and there are other such instances. Again, my interest in your listening to this talk is that you match what's being said unself-consciously with your own impressive experiences of life, love, effort, achievement, and peacefulness. Those times where your unconscious mind guides you successfully, as when you successfully choose a mate or decide to have a child and that you're glad of, or any of the things that are impossible to decide consciously unless we include our unconscious minds in those decisions. And we might have a dream, a discussion, or a vision of a future time. That becomes a plan or a prospect. One of the many pithy and impressive sayings of Zen Buddhism is, every day is a good day. Another, how glad a thing to be born a human being. In the Western tradition, these pass as declarations of faith in the value of life and humans. And all traditions have this respect for life and for the vastness of human experience. Conscious, unconscious, intentional, individual, collective. Remember that humans started out as small, mobile groups of several generations, all depending on each other to survive the day and the night. At night, those early human groups would gather around a fire and dream images in the flickering flames and the shadows. And then tell stories. Flickering lights, shadowy backgrounds, and stories. The stories connect us and connect us to our unconscious experiences of life and to each other. That's why we tell our kids bedtime stories. We write or email or WhatsApp with our friends. So hypnosis and hypnotic therapy come of an honest and ancient tradition of human relationship for a common and healthful, life-affirming purpose. I want to thank you for listening and for your dreamy attentiveness to these talks.